Hello and welcome. My name is Martin Close, and this is the Classical Art Academy online art school. Evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's stream. Let's take a little sip. So, a fresh start with a new still life, which you can see on camera. Now, objectives today is going to be to map out the image. It's not too complicated, but I'd like to get it I'd like to get it right. And if we can move to tonal values, then that we'll do so. So the real objective tonight is to map out the canvas and prepare for the painting, which will be starting as a stage 2. It's a fairly simplistic study. It's actually sheets of leather, chamois leather. And it makes a nice, interesting fabric type study. So it's, I think a lot of people struggle with fabric. So let's get straight in. And it's not as, fabric is quite easy as long as you take it in a particular way. You can get bogged down with fabric, so we won't do that. But let's see if I can get started. I've already made a little start on the canvas. You can see I've got 4 points. I've got the furthest left, right, the furthest left, the bottom, which actually represents the bottom of the cotton reel, and this here, which represents right at the top of that. And I think that's not. I think that's quite cool. We're going to start kind of this area here is about this area. So I'm not going to do the entire frame. It's almost as if you're looking at it on screen, I think. So we'll see how it pans out on proportion. So I've already got a bit of Imprimatura mix ready mixed up, which is French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I'm using burnt sienna on colors today because it's a fairly warm, I think one of the, the cotton in particular is very, very close to a burnt sienna. So I thought it'd be a bit better to use rather than raw umber. When on the palette, we've got titanium white, yellow ochre, cadmium red light, French ultramarine, burnt sienna, and ivory black. So the mix of Imprimatura, which is a very diluted, as you can see, stain, is a mix of French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. So let's make a bit of a start. Now, with this as the guide for here, which is the end of the bradawl, let's just see how we can map this out so that it's about right. So again, I've got the camera right in my field of view, but hey ho, never without a challenge. I'm going to go for the bottom shadow area, this here, right at the bottom, and see if we can map that in. This is just, I'm going for a bottom edge line currently. Hope everyone's well and enjoying February. Certainly been an interesting month. Let's have a quick look. So just want to try and get these points in place. And as usual, the first few points are telling. If we get these out, then it's going to be difficult to recover from that. And like I said, I've got the camera right in my way here, but no mind, we'll persevere with that. So initiating a bit of a shadow zone. I'm just going to go through a fairly rough outline initially. See if I can get a reasonable line in. So something like this would have been possibly nice to have done on a larger canvas, but get this roughed in. I do like to flit when I'm doing this. I don't like to focus on one particular area. And the beauty of doing a stain as an imprimatur or a line with an imprimatur stain, it's fairly easy to rub out or erase, I should say. So initially, I'm just going to map in as we would do for any kind of study, getting the key points in place first, going from top to bottom, using the camera lens or the image in the camera as best I can. I think it's always wise to probably go further. Is sound good?
Sounds fine. I noticed the camera on you, just on my screen, comes and goes a little bit, but it's fine. It's just
on me?
Not as sharp as the other.
Really?
But I wouldn't worry too much.
Oh, okay. Well, me looking like this, I don't think it needs to be sharp. Let's have a quick. Right. Let's see where some of this other is. So I'm going for just the outline initially. See what it looks like when I get the bare bones down. Let's just have a quick look-see. These initial stages, as you guys know, it's nice to have it right. And the big question when something like this is in place is, well, what points do you go for first? Well, easy ones, I think. Let's just grab that. I'm kind of looking for points of reference. And I'm going for the fabric folds first. That's the main area, I think. The cotton reel, which is wax cotton, is easily fit when I get the outline of everything else in place, I think. Let's just make that little adjustment. I had a lot of fun with the last week's study. That's going to be a nice little tutorial video, I think. The painting was finished during the week. Let's see where we are with this. I think that might be a little bit too high, that line. Probably given myself a let's have a quick look at that. Something's not quite right with that one. I'm going to go back to the original angle here. Try ahead, let's see if we can put that in again. Not so easy to do a straight line for some reason. Get a bit more on there. Thin that out. So after taking the top down, I brought the bottom back up again. Always question what you do. Right, so let's see if I can get something zeroed in. Let's go for a center point. Quite like the this area here for my center. It'll give me a lot of reference. So let's see if I can find and locate that. Let's just get that in. It's kind of on that plane. Slightly further over, I think. Yep. Agree with that. So now let's have a look between those 2 points. So the initial mapping out. Okay. Yep. Okay, so that would pin that at about that location. Does that work? Yes, okay, that's nice when I think that works. Let's come up to the other side of it. Putting these reference points in. Now, seeing where that is. Do we agree with that? Okay. Let's grab this a little bit for a second. Hang on a second. Would indicate that is slightly high. Always question everything you do. Something isn't right. It's wrong. And although we frequently think we have a magic wand brush, we don't actually have one of those. So we need to work at the image. See if that works now. Yeah, that's healthier. Good. Now come up to those 2 points. Yeah. Okay, so now we can, let's get the height of that in. Wrong brush. Teach me for having 2 brushes in my hand. Okay, so let's look at that. That's that. We can pop it there. So I'm now going to go for a line I see, which I think will help me quite a bit. Get that angle in. Okay, just seeing how that references everything else. It needs to come further over. See about an angle on those 2. Yeah, I think that's a better place. So from there, where are we? Okay. So I'm going to put an angle in across from there. Looks like it just needs to come slightly further over. Take that high area out. Now, let's just have a quick look at those 2 points. So all of this is really kind of just mapping out using the paintbrush handle to map out with. It's probably a bit easier to use a knitting needle, but Pause up for a challenge. Mark making, very small, tiny marks. Needs to come over. Take that out. So I've got two brushes in use, one to lift or pop a line in, the other one to lift a line out. Okay, so this continues over. The fabric folds actually are going to help us a great deal. So I quite like the idea of getting some of the fabric in place at an early stage. Choose the right angle. No idea what that was. Right. So let's see what we do with this. So let's bring this shadow down. This feels a little small in there, so I'm quite mindful of that. Let's bring that shadow up a little bit. Let's have a quick look at this a minute. My eyes are deceiving me, or I think it would help if I pop that back a bit. I'll take that just a tad more. that's a bit happier. And that'll probably affect above. Yep. So that doesn't affect too much of the main drawing. Okay. Make it a little bit clearer. I do hope you guys are drawing and doing some painting and drawing through this period. Even though we can't get out very far. Just pushing that slightly over a bit more. And there's a little curve on that. Right. Okay, so let's now see where other stuff goes. I'm kind of mindful of just popping this in and then checking to see. So which is which? Let's have a quick look. Okay, so I'm going to bring that slightly over a little bit. Small steps. Don't want to go too fast and furious at this stage. Now, getting another reference point. Might need to move that, so I don't want to go too heavy with it, but I'm going to pop it in as a shape, methinks. For the now. Okay. Now, let's tackle this little bit. So with that there, this is going to kind of come down. That's kind of a slight angle. It might be slightly too much of an angle. rather like a thin line if I could. Pop it in and then check it out. So you can see something and view the angles and then see where it goes and pop it in, or you can just pop it in and then check it. The most important thing is to check it. Let's check it. It's a tad high on the top, so I'm going to bring that down slightly. The small shape within shapes we'll tackle later. Let's bring that greater angle down into here. I think that's right either, but never mind. Let's put that in. Okay, so we've got the end of the bradawl is in that area. Let's see if we can see where to stick it. Just a bit too high. There's also an angle going across here, which I'm going to pop in and then look at. Yeah, that's, if it's moved over a few mil, it'll be in the right place. Looking at the negative space in here. At least I'm mindful of looking at the negative space. Looks like it could probably come up slightly. Whenever you're doing a curve, always do it as straight line sequence. There's something not quite right with that. Let's have a quick look. Fresh eyes. So I think it's this. Let's move that line over. So this brush is pretty much nothing on it. Might have a small amount of solvent, which is terps. Other than that, it's a dry brush. Okay. The shape of that dark area is not quite true. I'm not really that fussed for the time being. I want to put this in just to get an idea and feel for other stuff. See where things lie. So I'm putting this in, you could say, with a view of changing it when it's in. Okay, so let's put this Bradle bottom in. Now, where does it go? Move across, guideline. Some strange, interesting shape on the cotton reel. I'll have to change that in a second. Let's move that up. Right, let's do a bit of slight alteration. So slightly darker than I'd hoped, but never mind. Maybe that's a good thing. I think that just might need some tweaking as we go. So just, like I said, the only reason I really put that in is so that we can see where the stuff goes. Change it later. If you start fiddling with something too much and ignoring the rest of the drawing, it becomes out of proportion, so we don't want that. Let's just look at this a second and see where we are with this bridle. Pop it in, and then we'll see what it looks like. Too high. Methinks. Let's check the angle first. Some brush. Now let's see where the end is. Brush. I think this might need to come over slightly. Let's have a quick look. Pop it in, see what it looks like. So like I said, just going for the outline. If you only just joined, we're doing a fabric still life study with chamois leather. Chamois leather's got a bit more body to it. I'm going to put this in and I'm going to mess around with it because it's not quite there yet. let's just make some little adjustments. Too heavy. Don't look at it too dark. Okay, so let's move on to another area and we'll come back to this, I think. After we've put the outline stage in, then I'm going to go with a kind of coloured imprimatura, so diluted with solvent, but true-ish colour. I'll start to put in block. Okay, so let's move forward. We have another line coming in across here. It's a fabric fold. Which is a little lower. Let's lift that top one off. Like I said, this is almost a dry brush. If it had lots of solvent in it, it would run. And we wouldn't want that to happen. Okay, so we got some interesting folds of leather in there going on. So we'll need to look at breaking into that in a second. Let's get some of the supporting stuff in. Okay, now we've got lines going on here, so let's just have a quick peep. Let's have a quick look at that shadow line before we go any further, because I think it needs to come steeper. And that affects this. And we got an approximate line coming across here somewhere. So largely because of these, and I still feel we need a few areas in here before I go too freelance on it, but we're getting to the point where I'm just going to better see where the smaller shapes are, in other words. Right. Wanted a thin line, got a thick one. If you, anyone listening, by the way, would like to have a request for a still life, please do suggest. We always have open ears. So you can pretty much see where I am. I'm in this cluster around here. So let's just pop. I think I'm a little bit low, but we'll keep it there for a sec. Yeah, I do feel I'm low. Let's check that out a second. Seething, actually. It's only a little bit. Easy to pop up. I say drawing in imprimatura as opposed to drawing in charcoal is much easier. Imprimatura, or a stain on the canvas, I should say, because you can keep changing it till you get it right. Okay, so let's move tentatively on. I'm going to see if I can locate this place, which is this area here, because it's going to lead me across here, so I kind of feel we should put those in. Let's see where we are. It's about halfway. So from here, let's come up with an angle. Okay, so according to that, it's got to come slightly over. I'm going to put a line in and then we'll have a look at it. I think that's the wrong angle for sure, but it gives us something to play with. Unless I really love doing fabric, it's like a world within a world. Here's to know what's down here. Is it cloth or is it rock? So let's be decisive on this. Comes in about here, goes up an angle. Doing too good with these angles. I'd like to have got a few better, but never mind. Any angle's better than no angle. What I mean by that, it's a bit like a colour. If you haven't got any colour on your brush, you don't know if it's too light or too dark. But if you have an angle, you put an angle in and it's clearly wrong, and then helps you see the correct line. I feel. Jury might be out on that one, but I kind of feel that's truth. Right. See, I still want to put that in. Let's have a bit of a drink. So it kind of looks a bit like not something recognizable just yet, but we'll get that. I'm moving this slightly over. There's a curve in there somewhere. So I want to get this in. And there's a line coming down. It's very easy to get a little bit frustrated with your shapes at this stage, but try not to. It's just I'm mindful of putting a small shape in, and I really should be looking at big areas, because I think this really kind of needs to come over. So I'm telling myself off now. Yeah, I think that let's push that round. I think I've got too much terps on this brush, so it's taken the paint off that little left off brush. Okay. Let's see about this other shape now. So I want to put something in around here. See where we are with it. There is a see what that is. It's a shadow about there. quite right at place, but never mind. Didn't want to take that totally out. So we'll stick it in there and we'll keep it there for a minute. Okay, so let's look at this. It's kind of about here. Comes down, goes along, and then it goes through to the other side, which is, where are we? Here, maybe, lower down. Okay. And that kind of comes swooping down like this, but more so. Let's rub that top line out. That's just stain, but kind of is where that shadow is. So here's your tools you've got. Slightly over accentuated, so let's just pull that down a bit. I'll take a look at that, see what it looks like. Right. Yeah, that's kind of not correct, but never mind. Just smooth this over. Now, let's take a few reference points. Feels it still needs to come down slightly. That might be too much, slightly. When you're working the smaller millimeters along, very noticeable. Let's make a little correction of this line. It's going to be fun putting the paint on this. Good. So let's look at this line coming up from there. It's about as a shadow crease working its way around about here. ish. I'll put that in just as a temporary thing. I want to look at that in a second. Taking views on it. It's a bit low. So nice and gently, nice and slowly, no rush. There's a line coming from here. Let's put this in, see what it looks like. It's, look at that in a second. Changing the angle on that a little bit. Okay. Now we can kind of almost freehand, I think, sketch that little area. Let's have a quick look at it from a second from afar. I'll look at a computer screen for a minute. Okay. Beginning to take shape. When I look at the screen, I'm looking at oscillations. And the reason I'm looking at the screen is because I got this in my line of sight. So it's easier to look at the screen. Now, so step back a minute before I move into regretting something, which I'm going to do. I'm just looking at things which oscillate, which move for me when I go from one to the other. And yeah, there's a few things. This line is one of them. I stuck it up, but I think I stuck it up too much. I'm going to put that in as a mass, a bit like I did here. So I'm going to lift the top up. Let's just have a little, see if we can put this in as a mass area. Even though the intention was a line drawing. You can see how by putting a little shadow in really does assist. So we've got a bit that comes across there, comes up, and there's a kind of wiggle into the end. It's one too many wiggles, but never mind. Put this in as a mass area now. Don't think that was quite right, but it's not too far wrong. Maybe. Where are we with it? It's got to come out. So let's get a bit of terps on. Too much. Yeah, I put one too many wigglies in there, but never mind. Oops, easy to correct. Like I said, when you're doing this sort of thing, do keep calm. Immortal words, don't panic. It's only a painting. It's supposed to be a happy place. Sometimes we get too stressed out, especially if things don't quite work out the way we want them. No big deal. So let's have a quick look. Yeah, it needs to come up slightly, doesn't it? Either that or that needs to come down, but I think this needs to come up. We can do a lot of alterations when it comes to the painting stage, but the idea is we don't want to do too many of those. Right, see if we can do slightly better. This one comes out, goes in, comes out again. I think this is to make me feel good more than anything else, because it's not going to affect the painting or the drawing too much. Something like that. I find this quite relaxing. Never get stressed when I paint. And the truth is, it's fiddling with this isn't going to make this area isn't going to make the painting any better or worse. It's just a personal challenge thing. Something I enjoy. Right, let's look at this. Because when you get a small area, it's surprising how small it can get. Kind of feel we might have to lower this down slightly, but we'll see. Is that what's on my head? Yes, it is a bit high. And that's good news, because it means we can lower other stuff down, or there's more space to put other stuff. Oh, hello, that was the wrong place to put something, never mind. Push that round. Putting that in as a mass. Again, it's probably going to make me feel good, so no other reason than that. But it begins to take on a feel of fabric when we put these shadow areas in. But like I said, it's probably does me more good than the painting. So dry the brush. It's a little bit too wet to get a softness on here. Okay, looks a bit like a hill, which is exactly what fabric is. Hills and valleys. Now, I feel we've got a harsh edge there. I'd like to remove that. I'm going to make a bit of terps on the end of the brush, and I'll lift this out. Trauma about that is it's going to make the brush wet. So let's pay to any kind of tonal value errors we can do until the brush dries out all that. Let's of course use a different brush. Yes, could do that. Okay, so we have a guide here which is not too far out of the truth. In other words, it's in the wrong place. Okay, so now I'm going to put this little detail in. Detail, gosh, me putting detail in. I can hear my students smiling and chuckling. I never put detail in, yet I am today. So I'm going to bring this slightly down to bring it slightly up as a dip there. And the crease of the fabric goes up and then down, but it doesn't go down enough. So this brush should be able to push that down. Yeah, one of the questions I do get a lot is, well, what line should I go for first, or what's the next line I should go for, as if it's an order you have to do things in. I suppose it's when you're learning something, it can be very intense, and therefore you have to know the correct path. It's a real difficult lesson sometimes to realize that there's very often there's no direct path. There's no the way. There's many ways. So it doesn't matter if you go for this line, this line, this line, or this line, but do go for a line. Try to get the longest lines in first. Imagine this drawing complete, and there's some short lines, like say, for example, there's a small line here. Well, don't put that in first. Put this line in first, or this in first, or this in first. Try to get some guidelines in. Because that'll help your drawing immensely. So now let's look at this area, because it's a few things which we need to stick in there, and I'm beginning to get a little bit mindful that I might have to lift that up a bit. I'm thinking actually it does need to go up a bit. That's why I'm struggling with getting these things in. So a bit of terps, and I'm going to lift this shadow up. See what that looks like. Okay, which has given me a bigger area here to now put this little bit in. So let's move to that. Now, see where we got to go. Kind of feel it's about here ish. Slightly further back. Top bit. It looks like it could be slightly low. Okay, and this bit kind of connects up with that. I'm going to need to correct that line in a minute. Okay, so that needs to be a little bit smoother. It's quite dark in there. I'm going to put some mass in. Now, this area is dark here. Let's take a bit of a drink. Well, I'm not going to get excited just yet, but it looks like the beginnings of what we're trying to do. Never want to get too excited too quick. Again, this area's got quite a few things that's going to go inside it. But we're getting there. Going to come across with another line coming in across here, coming down. Let's have a quick look through the camera lens. Actually, look at the screen. Yeah. It's a kind of mass area of shadow. So, well, this isn't too wet with terps. If it is, it won't work. Just want to lift that tiny bit out there. Yeah, the brush is a little bit wet. Doesn't need to have a lot on it for making it, so very gentle work. That's not it's not very heavy-handed. Right. Moving onward. So mapping out still. We've got a mass area coming in here, haven't we? So let's pop that in. It's a fold in the fabric. And if you want to try some of this, I really do recommend get yourself some chamois leather. Get it on Amazon if you don't want to go out. It's not too expensive. If you try and get sort of 600mm by 800mm, it gives you a fairly nice size sheet. it folds into, or just let it rest in a ball, it creates its own shape and it stays put, unlike cotton, which tends to have a mind of its own sometimes. I think I put that too far over to the left. Right. And then just create an interesting shape. Don't go too complicated. You don't need anything else in it initially. You can just have a fabric shape. But it's a wonderful study. If any of you've seen any of Da Vinci's work on fabric, he was a real master of fabric. Meant to complete that statement really before taking a breath. Okay, that's a bit. Oh, wrong brush. Lifting this off a little bit there. Okay, I'm going to go a bit more defined on that in a second, but let's get, oh, wrong brush again. Let's get this in. Kind of feel I need to be slightly higher. Maybe. See about that in a second. So that's there. Shadow there. So at this stage, I think it really begins to get a bit of fun because it starts taking on a bit of life, character, and becomes a bit more pleasurable. Have I spoken too soon? I'm putting these marks in, almost using feeling as opposed to anything technical. I mean, yes, I'm seeing, obviously, but largely it's, does it feel right to go in there? I know I can change the shape if I need to. Yeah, just a quick time check. That's my, okay. So half an hour should have enough to get the bare bones of this in now. Let's have a quick look. So we have a line coming across here. I'm going to lower that down slightly. That's the wrong angle. But I think that's yep, okay. Not so sure that other line's in the right place, but we'll look at that in a second. We have something which comes up here and curves down kind of at that angle. Ish. It's looking at the screen. Maybe. Now we've got a really nice looking fold here coming up, coming across. And it's pretty much that shape. I'm going to put this in and I'm going to just correct that area in a minute. So this is a fabric shadow. The shadow is what I would say. Fold in the fabric. Going to need to do a bit of correction on the bottom part of that in a second. It's got a little bit wayward. Okay. And that line I want to get rid of. There's two things. There's a steep climb. It's got a shape to it. And then it kind of goes across here. And it's that line that I really want to pay a bit of attention to because I wasn't happy a minute ago with that. Trying not to put solvent on this brush if I can help it. That's the Lifty Offy brush which I'm using currently, the brush which is taking off stain rather than putting on stain. Okay, I'm going to leave that as it is for the now, I think. There's a tiny bit of shadow coming across here, which I can just pop a bit of stain on, and then with this brush just tweak that in. Just looking to see where I am. Okay, I'm just deliberately looking for oscillations, things which move, which should not move. This is a guide, obviously it's a guide sketch, nothing more, nothing less. So let's whiz around the other side. This is quite dark, so we can stick that in. Oopsie, I didn't know you got up there. Just thinning that at the top. I went a bit high at the top there. Coming back into stain and just putting the dark shadow in. The light bit peeping through, isn't it? Oh yeah. Going extra mile for that once for some reason. There's a fair bit of mass in this area. But I'll put that in a second. I'll just come into where we are with these now. So as let's have a quick look. Yeah. Very faint line coming out of here. Coming across in a soft curve. And here, shadow, that sort of area, I think. Pop it in as a shadow, and we'll see. This is shadow coming in, curving out. So it's a little bit harsh for a shadow, but never mind. Wasn't expecting to put such a lot of stain on. I think it's just why it's rubbed in. And we'll work that around. It's a little bit intense for what it is, but I'll be able to lift that off, I think, quite readily. See where it looks. Okay, I'm going to whiz that in. And let's just have a quick peep. I think that's probably I'll have to readjust that in a second. Softening this edge, and then I'll wet the brush and I'll lift off some of that, methinks. It's just a little bit too much. That's okay, just because they come down at the top slightly. Easy to do. There you go, done. See if I can see that on here. Yeah, it's a bit harsh, that shadow area. Didn't need to be that much. Just to push out a bit. Put a bit of terps into it to dilute the stain down a bit, I think. Right, let's just have a quick look. That comes up. Well, we've got a line, we just need it softened. Okay. Oops. I'm going to switch to a dry brush. Looking at screen because it's clearer in this area for me. It says right round the corner and it's well hidden, so my screen is my guide on this. Softening that edge a bit. One of these is going to be right. It's the other one. Okay, and now oh, that's the tips one. No, that's the tips one. It's like they're both turby. Bit of tissue. So we've got a shadow coming in around there. Let's just pop that in. There's a swooping highlight which is going to make a nice difference. Let's put that in. And it's coming round about here. Slightly different angle. It's causing a crease here. Further down even. And there's a bit of shadow going on there, and that highlight as it curves around needs to be lifted. So there's a bit of terps been put on. Just so that area needed a lift. Thin that line out and then see what it looks like. Yeah, a bit of tweaking around there. And then pretty much is that it needs to come over slightly, doesn't it? It's leaning over a bit too much. Silly me. Yeah, and then that we just need to value in a little bit, so. Looks a bit wide. Correct that in a minute. Yeah, we can crack that now, I think. It needed to just come over here. Oh, what a relaxing evening stream. So get this other area in. I think we've got enough information on it now to pop it in. I'll stick it in and we'll see what it looks like. Trying to get an edge. So I think it kind of goes like that. That's a big edge, isn't it? Gosh. Thin that out in a sec. Yeah, it's that neck of the woods. Why do something at one mill when you've got 5 of them? It's a quick peek. Yep. Up from the bottom left. Ish. So I'm just looking at the computer screen on that to get the guidance on it, and there's a bit of shadow there and a bit of shadow here. Kind of. Let's get that softened in. And then there's some, let's make sure it's not too heavy because there's a fair bit of shadow coming up from here ish. Kind of. Something like that. And swooping down the other side to create something like that, is it? Slightly more. Yeah, so bit easy that one. Stick that in. It's a shadow area behind the highlighty bits of the main fabric subject. So I'm just putting that in, and then we'll get this. And just soften it out. But like popping a lot of charcoal in and then just spreading it around. It's a bit heavy, but no worries. And this area is definitely softer as it goes into nothing. And that's the one with a bit of terps on, I think. I've got 3 brushes in hand, 2 lifty-offy ones, or 2 soft ones which lift off the stain, and 1 brush to apply stain with. And yeah, 3 brushes, so I get confused. Okay, so getting there. That's far from perfect, but Rome wasn't built in a day. Really, I'm using the screen as my guide now on this. You won't have this technicality when you come to do your studies. I'm going to use hopefully the right brush, just a bit of terps, and I want to just lift off a little bit here if I can. Yeah, and down here. It's a guide. I kind of like it to be looking a bit okay. So now we've got a tiny bit of correction on that. It stayed on. Super and chosen the non-terpy brush. Yeah. Rough shapes, but we're getting there. So there's another easy, let's have a quick look at time, make sure we're all okay. Yep. So, bit of stain. And that's there. So from here comes up with an angle, some rough guide. I think it's slightly further over. And cuts at about that point, I think. Is that right, or is that too tied it up a bit? It says, and shadow behind it. Add more. And it goes down like that. Oops, wrong end. Maybe it was the other end. Like I said, if you'd like to suggest a subject you want to study, please do feel free to give your suggestions to Rachel, who's at the other end of the stream. And we'll look at doing it. Especially while we're in lockdown, I think it's really nice to kind of listen to you guys and see what you'd like to see, and we'll always try and do our best to do that. There's a little guide coming across here, isn't it? It's like another fabric fold. Coming across there gently, does it? I'm going to use the softening brush just to take that away a little bit. I want it there, but I don't want it dominant. And we've got where is that coming out from? I've come too far down. Trust me. Easy remedy. There you go, that was painless. Now we've got this coming in. Is that the true angle? Not a million miles away. It's going down anyway. And the other side. Yep. It's a little bit out, but oops-a-daisy, that's miles out. And of course there's another one coming across, which I didn't see till just a second ago. So we got one which is quite, I think it needs to come further out. Let's just put a bit more in there. Not too much. Mass that in. Help the cause. And just soften it a little bit. So you can see how the fabric is quite straightforward to construct. You put a mark in, put a bit of value in, and wiggle the brush out until the value softens. You can even push the shadow up like I just did there. It's time to play, really. I think it's time to just have some fun and enjoy this space. So I think we must be nearing the end of this evening's stream. I'm just putting in a few tickles. I think Rachel's just said it's 7 o'clock now, so I'll step away from this in a minute and just see what I can obviously do. Hopefully it's not going to scream at me and it's going to say, well, you got it all wrong. I think certainly areas 2, there's a few things I want to look at. Oh, I just want to put that in because that's an easy one. I like easy. Is that correct place, or have I put it in the wrong spot? Or just not the camera? Sorry about that. Everyone's got motion sickness now. It's not quite right, but it's not quite wrong. So I think I'm ish happy with that. I'm going to mask that in. Let's face it, this is not a painting, it's the mapping out stage. So anything that's wrong, I'm going to end up with a list of changes I'll make at the next stage. lift off that highlight. And there's another little one there. But hopefully you can really see how straightforward and relaxing painting fabric can be. I think we fear it. I think a lot of people tend to think it's very complex. And certainly there's some great masters who've painted fabric beautifully in the past. You don't have to go too far to see what they've done. But it's like everything. Give it a go. It's not as scary as you think. Certainly a lot less scary than jumping out of an airplane. And people give that a go. So probably there's a few bits and pieces I would like to have done around here, and I then would have gone into this and just corrected those shapes up because they're kind of wrong, but in a nice way. So I hope that was interesting for you all. Please do give it a go, and let me know what you think. It could be, don't go too mad. Some simple stuff first, and then just see how it works. I shall look forward to seeing you next week. Same place, same time, 5 o'clock on a Tuesday evening, where we'll put some paint on this. So be safe, have a super week, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.